Welcome to the ATP Project. You're with your hosts Steve and Jeff, and we have Kara Saunders with us today to do a second round of interviews.
Second time,
Yeah, lots changed since the last time we caught up.
So much.
Oh my
Like
gosh.
what?
Yeah, tell us what's
happened?
life been
Just-
like for you?
Well, actually, there's a lot that's still the same. I'm still working out a lot and, living the health life. But I now have a little baby girl. So
Wow.
I didn't before. She's just hit 5 months old. So
And her name?
her name is Scotty.
Cool. That's a cool name. I love sort of guys' names for girls.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm married to Tony, so
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. We had a little girl, Rory.
Yes.
Which I like, and also Maxine was another name that I like to change it to Max.
Yeah,
I just always like that.
Yeah, me too. I like
Yeah.
those kind of unisex names. It's funny. If I get someone who's like a little older, or like our grandparents or whatever, when we tell them the name and they're like, "But she's a girl, right?" And I'm like, "Yep, she's a girl.
Yep.
She's just a modern day girl.
It's a
That's
gorgeous
all."
name.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, we loved it.
Can be a
That's
bit
fantastic.
polarizing. I remember one time I was taking my son to get christened, and sitting alongside in the church this very, very prim, proper lady. And my son's name is Clayton, which is actually from a family homestead in Scotland. But I wanted to give him as much chance with girls as I possibly could when he got older. So his middle name is actually Danger. And oh my gosh, you should have seen it. So like, what's your son's name? It's Clayton Deutsch. It's like, what's his middle name? And it's like, Tony's bumping me in the ribs going, because this is just like so prim and proper.
Yeah.
It's like, Danger? It's like,
Do you know what? We have a friend, and his middle name, their kid's middle name is Danger.
That's awesome.
Legit.
wow.
Yeah.
He's cool. I like him
He's
immediately.
cool. He's a cool little dude.
Is he?
Yeah, he's super cool.
Yeah.
Because there's an old cartoon, of course, Danger is my middle name was the famous saying in that, of course.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of the cartoon.
Well, no, it was Austin Powers.
Austin Powers.
Yeah.
Austin Powers. There you go.
okay.
Good fun. Yeah.
There you go.
I thought it was before that.
Tell us about you. I mean, I
Yeah.
know obviously, professional athlete, top of your game in the world, and motherhood then comes along, and that totally changes things. I mean, obviously it's a bit difficult to continue training, but I saw that you were training all the way up, right up until pretty much a few, days before your pregnancy. Pretty
Yeah,
much,
maybe
your birth.
about a week or so.
Yeah.
I think it was about a week or so before she was born. I have been a professional athlete, but the professional athlete side of things was kind of an accident that I then turned to my purpose.
Yeah.
But I fell into that, but I trained a lot for health and just generally because of how much I enjoyed it and because of how it made me feel, and it was just so good for me. And I typically have a lot of energy, and I just burn through that energy in exercise, and it makes me just a better person in many different ways.
Yep.
And so I just kept doing the same thing that makes me feel good for my entire pregnancy. Obviously, it looked very different than what I did beforehand. Everything was just a little gentler. There were no max out, like nosebleed max outs, go 100%. That didn't need to be the case. I didn't need to do that when I was pregnant. It's not safe to either.
Yeah.
So I moved, and obviously my level of fitness was probably a little higher than maybe your average pregnant woman because
Do you think?
yeah, I
Jeez.
just came off being, one of the top in the
on
world. Yeah.
earth. Yeah.
Five-time fittest woman in Australia.
Yeah,
Five-time,
yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah,
It's
so
like, who's the fittest woman in Australia? I'm sitting opposite her. That's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
yeah. So
Love it.
I still trained a lot, and just kind of like rode that wave with what felt right, and just I used my book smarts, but mainly my intuition when it came to just kind of growing a baby, and your body tells you when something's right or not right if you listen. And I did that right up until, and then it was about a week before she came, I think. And one day I walked into the gym, and I was just doing like some really relaxed exercises at that point, really slow. And I just turned to Matt, my husband, and I was like, this just doesn't feel like it's doing anything for me anymore. It actually feels like it's not giving back to me.
Right.
So up until that point, it helped me sleep. It made my body feel really good, and it gave me energy actually to move. And then all of a sudden there was a shift, and obviously nature was getting ready. She was on the way, and she came a week later. And so I just stopped, and I went for a couple of walks, mainly with the intention to get her to hustle out because I was on the tail end.
Yep. Was she a bit late? Or?
She was just over a week late by their calculations. I think by mine she was probably almost 2. Like she was probably at the maximum of how late they could be.
Yep.
And so I just stopped. I just went, it just doesn't feel like it's giving back to me or her anymore, and I didn't. And then about a week later, I just relaxed around the house and nested a little bit, and then she came along. And I did all the, be at home with a newborn kind of thing, those sort of days, and still spent some time in my gym and, working and being a part of my gym, but just not training. And I started doing my recovery exercises at 3 weeks postpartum, just like breath work, just like really slow, 20 minutes, just like breathing and just healing, I guess, taking the time to heal. And then I slowly and steadily got back into the gym, and I've just been building up ever since. And now 5 months postpartum, I'm actually in the midst of my first opportunity to qualify for the CrossFit Games again, which I definitely didn't expect to be doing. I didn't expect to be in contention to qualify right now. I just wanted to dip my toe in and start the competition feeling again, learning to compete rather than just train and get some practice, because it does take practice, and I haven't had to do that for a long time. And so I just started doing that. I'm doing better than I thought, and at the moment I'm sitting in a qualifying position, but there's 2 weeks to go. And so I'm kind of on the cusp, so it's kind of
that's pretty awesome.
It's uncharted territory right now, and I could qualify, which would be amazing and totally unexpected, and I might not, and then I'll carry on with the season.
And I guess it's good not to put too much pressure, and I want to come back and talk about this in a minute in terms of training while pregnant. And we have a lot of ladies that listen to the podcast as well too. There's a lot of controversy around that, and from my observations as well too, and again, you're a professional athlete, and it's really interesting to hear what you had to say, that you knew your body, and about a week out it's like, you could feel it. As opposed to somebody who hasn't trained before, who goes, I've seen these people that are training while pregnant, and then they go and start doing things maybe that they've never done. I mean, and there's a big difference in terms of knowing your own body. We're all different. But as a professional athlete, as somebody who has, lifted and trained, for probably the last 20 years, I mean, I don't know how long, but like for decades, really, I mean, for a long time, your body. This is work that your body's used to. So, one, did you get much grief? And two, what would be your advice to mums that have had some experience with training coming into it?
Yeah. Did I get grief? A little bit at times, yeah. In the early days, there were a few people making comments. Social media, it's accessible by everyone, and they would make comments at the start like, oh, that's irresponsible, whatever, with certain things that I would do. And I think that often those comments come from ignorance. Sometimes people are just a little bit closed off to the bigger picture. They don't see where I've come from, what I've done. They see a very, very small portion of what I do and who I communicate with. And, they might see me do one thing. They don't see the appointments that I have, with my health practitioners or whatever, like all of the conversations and all of the things that I test. They don't see that bigger picture. So I understand that from their side, from their point of view, or a lot of that is just sort of projecting their own judgment potentially on what they haven't done, or maybe what they wish they'd done. In a case of some women, it can definitely be the case. My main advice would be, like I said, your body will tell you what's going on if you listen. So you still have to listen. That's the first, that's the first thing, is like, some people, I don't know, but like, are you really paying attention? So you've really, really got to pay attention to what's going on. And I think in order to do that, you have to take the emotion out of it. And I think what happens for a pregnant woman is there's a lot of emotion behind it naturally, right? Like, especially for the first time, you might have looked and felt a certain way, and then all of a sudden you don't have control over that anymore. Your body changes. It's something that you can't predict. It changes physically, like on the outside, how you look changes, how it functions changes. It becomes, you are not your body's priority anymore. Something else is. Yeah. And I think what happens is a lot of women then want to go into training, and it comes from an emotional place. I don't want to put on weight. I don't want to change my identity. I don't want to lose who I am because I'm having a child. And so then their decisions are driven by emotion rather than what's smart, and so then they can make the wrong decision. They get really lost and really confused. I get messages all the time, what do I do for my core? It's like, I need to do, what ab exercises can I do while I'm pregnant? I'm like, there's no abs anymore. For the moment, your belly is serving a purpose, and it's creating space to hold a child, and everything that's happening in your body right now is for that purpose and that purpose alone, and that's nature.
Yeah.
And, you know, for me, I'm like, I chose to have this baby and everything that comes along with it. So you have to ride that roller coaster and understand that now, and essentially for the rest of my life now as a parent, I come second. You know, like I'm not first, like that's the priority. And also just to have a look at like yourself and understand that your training or what you do now doesn't define who you are. You know, for me to say that is pretty big if you think about it. Like it's my job, it's my livelihood, that's my income, like what I do and how I train. So it's really hard to go, oh, that doesn't define me, but it couldn't for the moment. It's temporary, and I think exercise during that time needs to make the mother feel good. Like I'm talking about really feel good. When you really pay attention, you can do a certain amount of exercise that gives back. It makes you feel energized, you know, and feel good for your body, help you with the aches and pains, help you sleep at night or whatever it is, and you'll know what feels good. And sometimes you need to take a rest. You know, there were days where instead of training, I had to sleep on the floor at my gym, you know, a little roll-out mattress, and, you know, Matt would go train, and I just like, it's just, I'm exhausted and I need to rest. Something's going on, you know, maybe there's a new stage of growth that's going on and I just need to have a sleep. I just didn't use it as an excuse either, because I know that movement is good for us. You know, in a lot of cultures other than ours, they have to move, you know, like they have to move to go and get their food and water or whatever it is they do. Or how much do you think I'd have to move if I had 2 other children hanging off me while I was pregnant? You know, we're okay to move. But I think if you take that emotion out of it and just do what is enjoyable, don't try and hold on to anything that you could do. Don't try and be a certain way. You don't need to be fit right now. You don't need to be super strong right now. You just need to be healthy. You need to be able to stand up tall, grow the baby, support the baby, you know, get some rest. And that it has to be the priority for the moment. It's temporary. Afterwards, it feels like a lifetime, and then in the end, like, you come back, you recover, you get back in the gym, and then life goes on, and your child gets older, and one day they'll be 18, like, you'll be fit again, you know?
And
like, it's okay.
Deal with empty nest.
Totally.
Yeah, right, which is kind of funny. You know, got little ones at home as well too, and friends of ours are talking about, you know, the kids leaving home, and they're actually going, I'm like, I can't wait for that day, right? And it's like, no, it's actually, you kind of, you know, it's another stage of life. But you mentioned something, and I want to touch on it because it's really important. And again, I know that a lot of our female listeners will get something from this. You mentioned about ab separation as well too.
Yes.
Now, being an athlete as well too, especially in lifting, core strength, you know, all that. Talk to us about that. Tell us, you know, how that's impacted you. I mean, it's amazing. It sounds like you're doing really well, you know, potentially. And again, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. And I can hear that. I can hear you say, look,
be careful.
And you know what? No one, I don't think it would ever say, oh, look, Kara, you know, she's being all prideful and all the rest of it, because you seem really humble about it. You're in with a shot, and there's still a little bit to go.
Yeah. But I'll still try.
You'll still give it a good crack. And there's no how would you say, shame if you don't get there this time.
Totally.
Which I love. But in terms of the abdominal wall, the separation, you know, transverse floor, all that sort of stuff, do you want to talk through to the ladies out there, especially that are, you know, interested in sort of all the changes that have happened?
Yeah, like, I mean, in a nutshell, I'm definitely not like a physiotherapist or anything. I did my homework and I asked the questions, you know, as many questions as I possibly could, and tried to find out as much information as I could. But, you know, we're a certain size, and our belly is sort of designed a certain way, and then it has to fit a person in it. There has to be space made to fit a human. Our belly goes out, right? And the abs are naturally going to separate. Like, there's no way around that. They need to pull apart. We have hormones that relax everything off, and they create that separation to create space. Totally normal. What we can prevent, though, is excessive separation. So now that's within reason. For instance, if you have twins, and you have, you know, 2 big babies in there, and they grow really quick, like, that's a different story. So this is, you know, in my instance, 1 solo baby, you know, doing the best I can in a pretty smooth pregnancy. There are exceptions to the rule, of course. But there are certain things within training where if you increase that intra-abdominal pressure, so if you're doing exercises that are straining the core, if you're trying to do ab exercises, for instance, or anything that just tightens up the belly in general, even a push-up will do that. If you hold the top of a push-up position or lower down, you can feel a plank, exactly. That pressure alone can create too much pressure that it actually pulls the abs apart more than they should be at that time.
Oh, so it's counterintuitive. You could actually, by trying to protect it, you can
break
actually
down the
make
collagen.
it worse.
Yes, exactly. And it will pull apart, and then the contents in the cavity then kind of like burst through, and it sort of presents as a term called coning or doming, and you kind of get this pointy sort of belly in the middle, and it looks kind of the edge of a football, where the stitching is. It kind of pokes out in the middle. Now, it's okay, obviously, if that shows, like I said, there's going to be a little bit of separation. My abs pulled apart a little bit, how they were supposed to. I presented with that quite early, like it could be an issue and it wanted to pull apart. And so there are a lot of movements I stopped doing instantly, because what happens afterwards is if that gap gets much bigger than it should have been, just enough to fit the baby, it gets drastically bigger. It sometimes can never quite go back to how it was. Right. And then you end up with not only some kind of dysfunction of the midline when it comes to like stability, and then obviously your midline is your back and everything like that, but also you can end up with that like little pouch of a belly. Like, it's not the end of the world, it's not all about aesthetics, but like the whole function of it is just not quite the same, and it doesn't necessarily have to be like that. So for me, as soon as I saw that point, I monitored every movement. I stopped doing a lot of strict movements, so like strict pull-ups, push-ups, anything. It was a lot of those sort of gymnastics, bodyweight skills actually that were worse, because I was working with my body as a load, and it was tightening up, and it would get that little pointy belly. Wow. So I didn't do that for a really, really long time. I'd say since maybe about 18 to 20 weeks, so about halfway through my pregnancy, that happened. And it was just that education. I'm glad I took the time to research, amongst a million other things that you just want to be mindful of. That was a really huge one. And luckily I had a regular amount of separation. You're not in the clear afterwards either. You don't just have the baby and it's all good. You then need to heal. Like, it needs to take time to come back together. And that's actually where I think I was talking to Elsa or Matt maybe, and we're talking about supplementing with the collagen and how good that was to actually help that tissue reconnect and repair, which luckily was something I was already doing. I was already sort of aware of, just to help that process along. And then, a lot of breath work like deep belly breathing would help to contract and bring it back together. Good deep breathing is good for you in a million different ways.
So true. In fact, I'm learning a lot more about that myself as well too, just the importance of breath.
Slow everything
and I've got
down.
to be more mindful to do it. But it's interesting to see you talk about that, obviously, as far as your core is concerned as well.
Totally. And now it's a skill that I have. I never really paid as much attention to beforehand, and now it's a skill that I have in my training, where I'm constantly referring back to taking those deep breaths, in everything that I do, to have control of my muscles and not be straining unnecessarily in any way, and obviously I'm now dealing with the fact that my pelvic floor has taken a little bit of a beating, having a child, all those kind of things are super important. But these are the things that it's just not worth pushing, and then ending up with some kind of dysfunction later on, and something that's going to stay with you long term, especially then having potentially a second, third baby, whatever people choose to do.
Does Matt know about this?
It's interesting.
Does he? No, definitely not that many, not anytime soon.
5,
I'm good
6,
with my one
6.
for now.
You're right. I just found out you only just turned 30 the other day, so you've got plenty of
26.
time.
Yeah,
27.
27.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well done.
One of your bios said 26, the other one said 27th, and I said, we've got to clear this up with
clear
her.
it up. Yeah, it was Sunday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. It was a nice quiet one with a 5-month-old. There's not really too much going on.
Quiet? 5 months old?
Different
kind
I'd
of
say
quiet.
it's rowdy in a different way.
How heavy was Scotty when she was born?
She was 8 pounds flat, pretty much.
Love to use the old
good
imperial
size.
thing. So I was born in the 60s, yes. 8 pounds. I love it.
Yeah, so she was a really good size. I thought she was quite little, and she was sort of compact in there, and I thought she was measuring little, and she came out, she looked quite small. But just like her mum, she's dense, so she was solid. She was.
Is she gonna be strong?
She was dense and solid like you. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So we all took a guess, and we're like, what's she gonna weigh before they weighed her? And we're like, 6 something, maybe 7 something at the most. And even the midwives and everything were like, 8. She didn't look like she was 8.
See, and that's something that when you're going to have a baby as well too, is talk to the partner and all the rest of it. Like, I was 11 pounds, and my grandfather, my grandmother, my great grandmother must have had diabetes, gestational diabetes. You can say the word.
Gestational diabetes.
There you go.
Yes.
I'm sorry. And he was nearly 15 pounds, and my great grandmother was 5'1".
Oh.
Wow. Yes, and a relatively slight flame. So. Yeah, those two things don't really go together. So an 8-pound baby
8 was
is
great.
like
I was 10 pounds, so I was really nervous. But then someone said apparently it comes from the dad's side.
Does it?
And they reckon, but him and his siblings were all like a really nice size. So she was still heavier than him at birth, which is pretty funny.
So nice teeth and those sort of things are secondary, really. If you, it's like, what's the size of the baby?
Yeah, exactly.
For metric, 3.5 kilos approximately. Just so you can for the people out there going, what's a pound?
3.6 or something like that.
Go.
Yeah,
that's awesome, mate. That's about perfect if you want it.
Yeah, she was super healthy.
Now it's just quite incredible. You mentioned gestational diabetes. The one of the, as we were told in uni millions of times, the most dangerous exercise to do during pregnancy is none at all.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
That's the most dangerous because gestational diabetes is a major risk factor. Preeclampsia, if you exercise, that mitigates those risks dramatically.
Wow. So do you want to discuss preeclampsia just really quickly, if you don't mind talking? Because I mean, obviously, back in the day, I was watching Downton Abbey the other day, and I think someone died.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, it's like, because back then they didn't know a lot about what they know now. So,
preeclampsia occurs when typically a mother's blood pressure raises dramatically due to the baby. It's usually the baby's not getting enough nutrients.
Right.
So the baby releases hormones like Press and a few other ones, which drive up the blood pressure, force more blood through the placenta and all this sort of stuff to keep the baby alive. And this is why it gives you insulin resistance as well, or gestational diabetes. You've got a much higher risk because the baby has these hormones coming out to cause you to become resistant to insulin, so as they get more nutrients. So preeclampsia is super high blood pressure during pregnancy, and it's relieved by, usually, I love this one, if you went to hospital with preeclampsia, they give you a magnesium infusion.
Oh.
What we'd rather do is give you adequate magnesium so you don't need the infusion when you go to hospital.
Right.
Yeah. Magnesium sulfate infusions is what the treatment is. So it's a lack of magnesium largely.
There you go.
Magnesium's a calcium channel blocker.
Just because we were talking about it, it's obviously just interesting to sort of round that out. So, but in terms then of where you are now,
yes.
I mean, obviously we're 5 months down the track, and it sounds like things are going kind of good. So when were you able to really start? I mean, it's been a gentle sort of ramp up for you, for your training.
It's super steady. I like I said, I took the first stage. I looked at it and treated it like rehabilitation.
Yeah.
My body sort of went through something that I wasn't familiar with, and it was traumatic, amazing, but it's a big task and you need some rest. I know they say it's like in ancient Chinese medicine, they talk about like after birth, they really nurture the women. It's all about like warmth and rest, and they take the baby and they help look after the baby so the mother can just recover. You need that time just to heal and to slow down. So, we spent time at home, and it was that 3-week mark. I had no plan of when it was going to be, and one day I just went, I think I just want to go and do some of my breath work, and I'd sort of had a whole heap of exercises through someone who I actually found online. I did a lot of homework and found someone that I related to, someone that I understood what she was saying and I connected with, and so I bought her program and used that in conjunction with other things that I already knew, and I just started one day, and it didn't come from, like I said, an emotional place. It just felt right. I had 20 minutes when the baby was asleep, and I just went out onto my deck in the fresh air, just lay down, did some breath work, some really basic things, and just started there. And then from there, it's just been really, really slowly building back. It was just, at the start, exercise was purely just movement, breath. It was just something to give back to me. I wouldn't even say it was like proper exercise. At the start, I would sit on a bike for 20 minutes with her on my chest. Cool. And I was just cycling around with my legs really slow in like what we'd call like a zone 1 heart rate. You can still hold a conversation, just like really about just breathing, aerobic work, just nice and slow. And then just slowly started to turn my body back on, because everything afterwards, like your hormones, it's so funny. I trained so much. This is something no one told me. I trained all this time. I did different exercises, but I constantly used my body, and I maintained an element of strength and fitness throughout my pregnancy. After you have the child, no matter what you did, it goes away.
Oh, yeah.
it just disappears. In that time, in those weeks afterwards, you're sleep deprived. Your body is prioritizing feeding the child, being alert and awake to keep them alive. You know, so everything.
Light sleep.
Yep, light sleep. So you do not recover. I was sitting down all the time trying to figure it out. It's a huge mental task trying to learn how to feed her, what her cries mean. You know, you're on call 24/7. And no matter what I had done, all of my muscles withered away. You know, I'd been sitting down and I had no fitness anymore. I had no strength anymore. I was soft and just like motherly. That was my sole role. And I couldn't believe it. I thought, no one told me this was going to happen. You know, these hormones are driving me and I have this task. And no matter what I did, I'm still glad I did it because obviously it gave me a really healthy pregnancy, but it wasn't going to make me a good athlete or keep me a good athlete afterwards, you know.
Do you want to know the biochemistry of that or not?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I have my own like little home brand kind of like how it played out, but I'd love to know the science.
It's quite simple, really. You only release growth hormone when you go into a deep sleep. And you're not going into a deep sleep, you don't release growth hormone, your muscles can't recover. This is one of the pathologies of chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia, the lack of growth hormone release at night. So their muscles simply don't recover and they actually atrophy dramatically. So that's a lack of sleep.
I felt that. Like it's, for lack of a more technical word, like you get soft. You know, I just remember like I'm someone who's been quite muscular for a long time and you feel a certain way, like to actually physically touch myself and the connection, the signal that I would have and the control over those muscles, it was not there anymore. So like I could feel it like in my glutes when I'd walk around and in my legs. I'm like, this is so odd. I've actually never felt this like soft, you know, like nothing. It was just not recovering. I'm like, doesn't matter right now. But essentially I had to start from scratch again. And that meant awakening the body, turning it on really slowly with activations, gentle movement, stretching within, you know, obviously you've still got relaxin and things like that kind of like going through your body. So there's only an element of those kind of things you can do. And it was just like, just slow and steady, build your way back up, let the abs come back together. The hardest part starting back was actually the conditioning. So like just the breathlessness, you know, like especially the lack of sleep. So trying to do something that would get my heart rate up. I remember doing a workout on a bike and I stopped 3 times and I thought it's been years since I stopped in the middle of a workout, and even going slower was not going to be okay. I actually had to stop.
Wow.
Because I didn't realize my limitations anymore either. I didn't realize I was that unfit.
Wow.
And so I just learnt to let go of the expectations, but don't quit. You know, just keep showing up. Just keep showing up and just keep rolling with whatever my body had to offer that day. And then over time, it just compounds. You know, you just keep turning up and you keep trying, and it gradually falls into place. And then now, you know, you start off with learning how to breathe and get some fitness back, and then you have to turn on the muscles and get to working your strength side of things. Then you have to learn to combine those things. And then now I'm in a position where I can do most things. My skills are slowly coming back together from things I hadn't done in a long time. But my muscular endurance is not amazing. So I can do it, but that fuel tank and those kind of things is not so great. They're just not as conditioned.
So the amount of supplementation that you could take during and obviously while you're breastfeeding as well too is restricted.
Yes.
And I talk to Matt about this all the time. We get a lot of questions as well too, obviously around our products. And the thing is that it's not tested, because you can't test on pregnant
safe.
or breast. So it's not safe.
It's not
because
ethical,
we
no.
just don't know.
Yes.
And you can make assumptions. I mean, I look at a lot of chemicals that are out there in the market that people are putting into their body, which, you know, like synthetics, and it's like, well, you know, there's not really been any studies on that either, but it's been out there for a while and nothing acute's happened, so people go, that's fine. So, but that's another story.
Yes.
But how have you been able to manage then in terms of your recovery? And obviously food is medicine, and that's where it all starts anyway.
Yes.
But, you know, how much has that impacted on your recovery, your training?
It's definitely harder. You know, the priority obviously has to be the baby, and especially breastfeeding her. And the reality is that, like you said, it's not ethical and it's not safe to test on a pregnant woman. And I get asked this all the time, like, what do you use? What's okay? What's not okay? There's just no blanket rule. Like everyone is so different too. Like, you know, if you have preeclampsia or you have gestational diabetes, like that's going to be different than somebody who doesn't. And there's going to be certain supplements that are okay and they're not okay. So to tell someone that definitely is okay or not okay without bloods, without whatever, you know, the safe answer is no.
That's the safe answer.
You know, if in doubt, no.
Yep.
And eat a really good diet as best you can, and you know, ride the wave of things being difficult for a while, and then they grow up and it's okay.
Yeah.
There were certain things that, you know, I was sort of mindful of, certain herbs maybe that would implicate milk supply or whatever it would be. Like, this is a possibility. Like, it's sort of presented as maybe.
Yep.
So let's not. Like, just in case. This could potentially act as a stimulant, not always, but let's consider this.
Yep.
I just take all of that. If anything made me feel uncomfortable, then no. The answer is no.
Yep.
But there are certain things. So say, for instance, I have a product and then it's like, oh, okay, this particular amino, whatever, might act as a stimulant. Then I just go, okay, I will have that away from feeding her, you know, the way that, like, you know, people do it with other, you know, some people do that with alcohol or whatever. Like, if they do, they time it a certain way or whatever, if they choose to do that. But, and that's something that I sort of worked with on my bloods, my situation and all of those kind of things. But outside of that, it just has to be good nutrition, good health practices, everything else that you could possibly lean on. But it's a tricky one.
It is.
It's a really tricky one. And I think you make the best decision that you know how, like every mother does. Yep. I think there are a lot of worse things than if you can obviously have a, you know, obviously I trust in ATP and I believe in I believe in ATP and the products being clean and good, and I've used them for a long time. So there's certain things that obviously I've chosen to have and not have, and that's based off the guidance that I've been given.
Yep.
I think there are a lot worse things in certain soft drinks and
and that's what I was talking
foods
about. Absolutely.
And absolutely everything. There are things so much worse, even down to the products that people are putting on their skin, you know, that are being
did you saw
absorbed
about
through
Johnson & Johnson recently?
Exactly.
With the talc.
Yes.
Yet for years, and yet they had covers up and denials, and now they've got cancers and they've got ridiculous lawsuits. And yet, do you remember the ads with the baby with the splashing the
baby
the talc?
save?
I used to make talc. I was the head chemist at Cussons, and we used to make soap and talcum powder.
That's
dramatically,
horrible.
Loads of it.
Well, look,
There's
and
tons of it.
So you're right, and the thing is with Tony as well too is that she selectively used products during her pregnancy that through consultation as well too, and at her own, if you like, risk. And you have to take responsibility for your body as well too. So long as you're educated and informed, and while there can't be any endorsements, if you like, from companies, simply because obviously there's no testing there, you're 100% correct. Is that it's one of those things that we always say with the blank field. We don't recommend it. You go and do your own due diligence yourself. Yeah. So are you still breastfeeding at the moment?
Yes.
So obviously that's probably still going to limit a few things that you can and can't do.
Yeah.
But so and it's, you're going to keep breastfeeding as long as you can.
Yeah, as long as I can, as long as she needs to. Like,
when she's 5, mummy, booby.
And then maybe God, I hope not that long.
Big teeth, you know?
I actually spoke to I've worked for years. Actually, I've had a lot of like jaw issues, and I work with a neuromuscular dentist who's helped me with these kind of things. She's super smart in her field. And she kind of said to me, like, I know this is going to blow your mind, but she explained to me the whole process of how sort of babies develop, and they go from like they breastfeed and then they get teeth, and then, you know, people do this whole like baby-led weaning and all this kind of thing where you give them food, and everyone's got their own opinions how to feed your baby. Again, you do the best with the information you have and, you know, your individual child and all of those kind of things. But I plan on just breastfeeding her. Obviously, it won't be her sole form of nutrition. Like she at the moment, she plays with food. I call it like it's her food experience. And so long as she's capable of kind of doing that, that's how I'm doing things. That's how I've chosen to do it. Whether it's right or wrong, I don't know. I'm learning too. And then, you know, obviously breastfeeding just plays a role in their immunity and everything else, which is super important to me. And she's such a healthy, like, glowing little baby, and you know, plus it's like way more convenient. Like,
she's convenient.
You know, like,
she's also cute too. She's adorable. God.
I think so, but I'm biased.
Yes.
But I think I found out all of this like information I didn't even understand of breastfeeding, you know, and the feedback loop, you know, that whole like backwash system, and how that signal then tells my body like I can be sick and then she's fine, and that's amazing. Like,
I know.
So my theory is like I can make prime golden standard milk if I'm really healthy. So I drink a lot of water, I eat really clean foods, I avoid processed things, obviously not 100% of the time, but pretty much. You know, I keep myself really healthy. I'm probably one of the healthiest times I've ever had in my life because my priority is, you know, looking after her. Plus I can't afford to get sick or do anything right now because that's not fun when you have a child.
Yeah, no, exactly not.
But yes, supporting her, and I'll do that, maybe not till 5, but
well, you know, it's all about prolactin, which is a hormone that normally we're enemies of, because prolactin can cause arthritis and impotence in men, and it can cause depression in women, all that sort of thing. You want loads of that now.
Yeah.
So if you took a herb like Vitex, classic herb, it's great for women typically. It suppresses prolactin because it increases dopamine in the brain, which will make you feel good, but it will suppress breast milk.
See, this is obviously the importance of knowing what you're doing with any supplementation that you're doing. So,
run it through, and that's exactly what I do. I'm like, look through what I've currently taken. Let's go through the ingredients. Let's just do our homework, find out, and then if anything, this is questionable, whatever. Okay, no, you know, I need to produce milk. I need her to be okay. I've always believed in allowing my body to process things and try and support my body to do it on its own. You know, that's obviously a natural health perspective. Like, that's how I've always lived. And so with any of those kind of things, like, I just didn't have it, you know. I just didn't have it. I just ate food, you know, took whatever supplementation was going to help me under guidance, and drink a lot of water, sleep where you can. Like, it's the easy answer, really. It's just not always the answer or the recipe that people want to hear.
No. Well, it's the same thing with fevers. They're difficult with babies. I mean, like, you obviously want to calm them or what have you, but they're there for a reason. They're there to increase the body temperature to kill off the bug that's there. I mean, obviously, you need to be wise, and you need to keep an eye on that. And if it starts to get too high, you've got to go to the hospital. But you're right. Mild fevers and those sorts of things are there for a reason. It's the same as sickness as well too. I mean, dare I say it, colds and flus in us as well too. It challenges our immunity. It actually helps us to build, you know, resistances to it. If we're, you know, always trying to circumvent that, then it's like avoiding going to the gym because it hurts.
Exactly.
You know, it's like until you actually need to lift something and your arms snap off. You know? So it's like, you know, we've become so averse to discomfort, and I'm not even talking pain, I'm just saying discomfort. Like, you know, I had a headache which I never get right, so I don't know what's going on there. And it's like, have you had a paracetamol? I was like, no, now it's gone. You know,
it'll go away.
Or maybe I didn't drink enough water today, so I just actually had a whole heap of water. But, you know, it's like, what's the big deal, right? Now, I'm not saying cluster migraines, or I get that right. But you know what I mean? It's like, we're so averse to pain. And we're always like treating ourselves like dogs, you know.
I think it's just like everyone, or I guess the mindset behind it is just convenience, like just making everything easier these days. I hear it a lot about breastfeeding, for instance, you know, like, oh, it just doesn't work, it's just not convenient for me or whatever. Now, look, I'm not judging at all. Like, everyone makes the decision that works for them. But, you know, anything that I've ever done that I've been successful at or that I'm good at now had some kind of discomfort. You know, like breastfeeding. I remember someone saying to me with breastfeeding when I was pregnant, she visited my gym, and it was the single mum tip that was given to me that I really, really remembered. Now, everyone gives you lots of tips, right? And this one thing she said, breastfeeding is very hard, but don't quit. It gets easier and it's worth it. Like, it's really, really difficult to figure out how to do it, and it hurts. And then the whole balancing act of the timing and doing it in public now in the modern world, like, everything about it is difficult. There's really nothing that's super easy about it, aside from not having to mix up a bottle, I guess, you know? And it has been difficult. Like, it's so hard, it's so inconvenient. Like, they just get hungry at the most awkward times. But on the other side, I have like a really healthy, happy little baby, you know, like, and that's all that I can ask for. And I think being an athlete and everything that I'm good at in that now, so much discomfort, so much day in and day out, you know, like, but it's so worth it. It's so worth it in the end.
I'm going to ask you a question. Yeah, you talk about discomfort. I watched the video of you just before today, and it was incredibly But what I'm amazed is you're a new mum, 5 months of being a mum. You run a business. You're an entrepreneur. You speak all over the place.
You're speaking this weekend.
That's yes. When's that?
Oh, there's ATP Health Summit. This amazing educational weekend. It's going to be great.
What are you talking on?
Surprise, surprise! I'm talking about health and fitness and motherhood and
but my question was, how do you fit it all in? How do you balance this? You've got a husband, you've got a life, you've got a baby, you've got a business, you've got speak. How do you do it?
There's a couple of things that it comes back to. One thing is that I do what I love. So I love speaking at these events. I love my businesses and I love my family. So I'm willing to do the things that make that work. I've chosen to fill my life with the things that I really enjoy, and there's nothing that I'm doing that I don't enjoy. So that makes it easier. I think a lot of it also comes down to perspective. Like, you really have to have a look at like what's in front of you. Like, the things that I have in front of me, as busy as it is, are really, really good things because I made that choice. So when they're hard, they're not bad. Hard is not bad. Hard is just hard, and it has a really good outcome. And then your support crew. Like, anyone who says that they don't need help, like, that's a lie. Like, I do a lot, and I'm pretty resilient, and I'm good with her, and I juggle her in a lot of ways. But I need Matt. I need my mum. I need our family around us. Like, they help out so that I can do everything. Like, he will come to the health summit and he will be there with her and make sure that she's okay while I do my thing. Like, we juggle and we parent together and we make it work. And some things are harder than others, like taking her to a business meeting this morning for 4 hours while she squeaks and squawks and feeds and everything. Like, it's tricky, but I'm still there. I'm still present. She's there with me, and I want her to see what I'm doing too, because I really like what I do, and I want her to see that as her example as she's growing up. So I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, that's
awesome.
really cool.
It's just awesome. It's incredible.
So moving on from Kara the mum to Kara the world-class athlete, and I know that we're sort of getting into it. What was your take on the games this year and the new format that they had? I mean, now from an Australian point of view, Tony and I watched all that, and we were just like going, this is super cool, because obviously James Newbury,
he's
and
amazing.
He's supposed to be speaking on the weekend, just crashed his mountain bike so bad. I mean, he just about killed himself, the poor bugger.
What's the broke his spine? That's nothing.
And he was prepared. He was still prepared to come. He's such a trooper, right? It's like, no, you're not
Classic
coming,
James,
mate.
right?
Can't fly, so he's going to drive.
No, you're not allowed to come.
Drive from
Just
Adelaide.
rest.
So he's going to drive 2,000 kilometres from Adelaide to here with a broken spine and a punch
in two places, punctured lung
and a busted lung.
Two broken ribs. But
I mean, he's as hard as nails, but come on, James. Anyway, so and he did great. And I mean, the format, I was looking at it going, wow, this is in his wheelhouse. This is because James is really, really great at the runs and the swims, and he's really good at that. Not that he's not good at lifting. I mean, he's amazing. I mean, he's Australia's best. Matt McLeod.
Yeah.
He's doing great too. I mean, like, good on him, and he did really well. He was pushing James all the way as well too. But I mean, like, Matt, James is right up there.
Yeah, fitness is his thing.
He must have been really. I haven't spoken to him, but he must have been super happy.
Yeah.
What did you think of the new? And of course, Tia as well too, the other Australian who did well, and she's strong all round too. I mean,
she's super balanced all around. She doesn't really have a whole, like, it's been proven. She's now the fittest woman in history. It's like the only woman to win 3 games, 17, 18, 19 back to back is amazing.
Yeah.
An Australian, how cool is that?
That's great.
And so it was different.
What did you think? What do you think of the new format?
New format.
Because I mean, if they went heavy on the cardio this time, maybe they go heavy on lifting next time, which is your wheelhouse, right?
Yeah, I'm naturally stronger. I'm a little different now, though. Like, I don't. It's sort of flipped. I'm kind of a little bit better in the fitness side of things, so I'm still trying to get my strength to catch up. But I don't know where I am. I'm just just chipping away, doing as best I can. Yeah. But I think it was the first year, so obviously there's a lot of growth. There's a lot of things that they need to figure out. I think the new format is really good. It's really positive for the sport, especially having the introduction of the new sanctioned events. There's like 30 opportunities for someone to qualify to get there, and at different times of year. So depending on what you've got going on, you can hand pick where you want to go, whereas we only had one opportunity before. And if you're sick that weekend, well, too bad. You don't get to go.
So that's better. And for all the people listening to this who know CrossFit, they know what we're talking about. For those that don't, obviously you had to effectively qualify for the World Games where you would go, and then it was kind of 2 days, everyone's in the event, even if you're coming very last. This time they changed things around a little bit, so you had more qualifying opportunities, but then they had like cut off. I think they cut off the bottom half of the pack after a couple of races, wasn't it?
So that's the controversial part, and that's the
Right.
part I think just needs a little bit of adjusting. So I think the concept of it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So especially for spectators, it's thrilling,
Yeah.
and it forces athletes to be better because you need to be so well rounded. You don't know what test they're going to throw at you, and you need to be ready to be good at everything. Otherwise, you're going to get cut.
Yeah.
So they cut after one workout, and then they cut again, and they kept cutting until they got down to the final 10.
It's a long way to go. If you're crap at running and the running's your first event, or paddleboard. Let's say if they did paddleboard first.
Yeah.
With some of the guys, I mean, they're not, and girls, they're not great at it.
Or if it's a 1 rep max lift and you are more fitness or whatever it is, you just cross your fingers and, hope. But so I think that needs a little bit of work in that there needs to be a little bit more of a balance test before the cuts.
Maybe one endurance and one lift.
I think have a lift,
and then cut.
Have a skill, like a gymnastic skill, and then have some endurance or fitness kind of component. Cut. Then do the same thing in a different capacity. Cut.
That's good.
And then they can work their way down. But what we saw happen was just if they had flipped the order of the games totally over, so the last events were the first events, you'd see a different top 10.
You would. Maybe with the exception of who's the top guy at the moment?
Oh, Matt Fraser,
He's ridiculous.
Him and Tia are still going to... They were still going to be there no matter what. So, the theory is that the fittest on earth are always going to be there, right? They're going to find their way to the top no matter what because they're the best. And they proved that.
Right.
But the rest of the leaderboard, depending on who was there to distribute the points in the leaderboard, could really shake things up.
Yep.
So, for instance, there was someone tested positive in the drug tests recently who placed in the top 10 on the women's side.
What would they test positive for?
I couldn't actually tell you now.
Was it a steroid, or was it a performance enhancing, like an EPO, or was it...
I couldn't tell you.
Don't know.
I couldn't tell you. I'd have to have a look into it. But either way, it was enough to... that, obviously it's not allowed in our sport. I'd have to find out what it was. Baby brain won't allow me to remember it. But... so she placed in the top 10. So the way that the games went through is that there were only 10 for the last couple of events. And so now she's in the top 10. You now take her out of the equation and you pretend that she wasn't there.
Yeah.
And then some of the girls, someone say like Annie Thorisdottir, who's classically been at the top, could have been in that top 10. She then potentially could have challenged Tia on some events.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden the podium has 3 different people. Because those different athletes can do different things. So, and that's just one athlete who shouldn't have been there. So now if you flipped the events and you shuffle around who was there towards the end, that podium looks totally different again.
It's really cool.
So there's so much variance.
Is there much input from the games to the athletes? Is there much in terms of, do you have an athlete, and I'm happy to do this for you guys, for just, maybe 5% of all your appearance fees. No, I'm just kidding. but like in terms of, is there a representative body from the athletes that actually challenges and puts forwards effectively the athletes' feelings to CrossFit?
I don't think so. I think at the moment there's a couple of people like in the media space that are sort of putting things out there and making it known, drawing attention to it, like reporting what's going on, and they kind of know what's going on behind the scenes and things like that, and that's how we all find out. And then through that education, obviously CrossFit HQ are taking, and the CrossFit Games are taking that information and then making adjustments, and they're still growing. The sport is still young. This was a massive change. It was the first time it's ever happened. And there are things that probably still need a little bit of work to keep it a fair test, I think. But at the moment there isn't really anyone, there isn't a board, there isn't an athlete's board or something like that, I guess, to actually get that through.
And look, at the end of the day, and I agree with you. I think it was cool. I mean, I really enjoyed watching it, and
Super thrilling.
It's a commercial. It's a commercial enterprise at the end of the day. It's professional athletes with prize money, sponsorships, and all the rest of it. They've got to make money, and then as athletes, the bigger the sport becomes, the more prize money. Great, more people are interested, potentially becoming professional.
Exactly.
But you're right. They've got to balance that against the fairness. And look,
Yes.
let's, I guess, not be too critical because it's the first year.
Totally.
Hopefully they come back and maybe hear some of those criticisms and sort of take it on board.
Which they've done every year since they started. There's
Yeah.
always been change. There's always been growth. Like, and
Yeah.
there probably always will be. And I don't know if there's ever a final perfect recipe. There's always something that's not going to be quite to everyone's, pleasing. But
Yeah.
It's absolutely amazing because you've got to think this is probably and I can't think of another sport where you turn up and you go, what are you training for? Don't know. You know,
Everything.
like if I'm an Olympic swimmer and I'm a 400-metre swimmer, I'm
That's
Ian
right.
Thorpe, I'm going to swim 400 metres and that's it. Exactly
Yes.
400 metres. I'm going to do freestyle and that's it. Tennis, anything. But can you think of any other sports that you turn up and you go, what am I doing today? What am I training for?
Yes.
CrossFit. What's that? Well, it could be all this stuff.
Yeah.
and it's a
Amazing.
secret. And so,
Yeah.
like, there's things like, because it's a secret, so that there is a fair test of everyone not knowing and then knowing last minute or whatever. You've got judges, who are coming from around the world who will judge us in these workouts, but they might not know it till last minute. They might not be fully switched on or clued,
Right.
so there's error.
Right.
We saw that in 2017 with me.
Yep.
So then there's those kind of
right.
errors, and there's a few things that definitely need to be sharpened up. And one of the other athletes, he just recently put up a vlog, and he said it kind of how I've always looked at it, in that when I register for the Open, I pay my $20 and I know exactly that I know what I'm getting into, you know what I mean? Like, it's on someone else, it's their event, they're organising it, I do it because I love it, and I just take what comes with that, because I'm doing what I love, and I understand that they are improving on it each year, but in the end I could always choose to not turn up too.
Yeah.
You know, like if I had a big enough issue with it, I could choose to go and do something else.
Sure. So, I think we can hear your
Yeah,
get a
we
little
can hear
girl
my
in the
little
background.
ones.
That's
Sorry.
cool. No, not at all. No, not at all. This is a family-friendly podcast, this one. So I think in terms of, and it's really interesting as well too, and it's kind of cool. We're working a little bit with Spartan as well too, and I appreciate they're kind of like distant cousins. I mean, but it's the same philosophy as well too, which is good about encouraging people to get out there, to train, to be active. And, like anything as well too, we want to see more of that, as we get concerned as well too about too much time with kids on video games and not engaging into sports and all the rest of it. If they can actually have, heroes and people to look up to, and your attitude and your resilience, even the heart of a champion is when things don't go your way or don't fit in your warehouse, but yet you find a way to compete and to do the best that you can and, win.
Yes.
So, whether that's on the podium or not, you know what I mean? So, that's obviously what being a role model is. And I guess that's the thing about being a professional athlete as well too, is it's not, as you said before, it is actually outside and bigger than just yourself as well too. It's actually the people who, look up to you and who, follow you and listen to what you say and do as well too. So, the how would you say, the influence that you have is way bigger than just, yourself.
Yeah, I'm in that place right now where I realise that more than ever. I'm a little bit older. I'm 30 now, so I'm a proper adult. I'm a proper adult.
Look, I'm 30 as well.
Yeah, so am I. Yeah, I identify as 30. There you go, not 50.
I think I finally I'm competing, and I always put myself in 100% into what I do, and I love competing, and I'm never going to do it like half-assed. It's just not how I work. But I can definitely see for the first time, like I'm not so sort of selfish in it. I can see the influence. Probably having a child really helps to see that. I see what I do, how that will impact how she is as she grows up, and how I want her to view herself and what she does, and how I want her to have pride in what she does, and all of those kind of things. And I actually, now being a mum, the kind of following the people that are now connected to me and that reach out to me and all of those kind of things, I actually understand that influence now, and that's holding a lot more value to me, and that's why I'm getting involved in speaking. And I'm not a professional. I don't have it all sorted. I'm not just a perfect mom, perfect athlete, and I've got it all done, so I'm going to tell everyone how to do it.
Who is?
But yeah, exactly. But I do have a platform, and I've made a ton of mistakes and still am, and I'm figuring it out, and I understand it, and I understand how hard it can be, but also how good it can be. And I guess that's where I am, where why I am where I am right now, because I just want to share that and help people out, and we're all in it together, and we're all just trying to live our best days.
Well, I think you're an amazing role model, and it's really cool as well too to have a top tier professional athlete as well too that's looking to come back after having a daughter. I mean, I'm really excited. I mean, and in closing as well too for you, what do you see? I mean, again, you've been so humble, so we know that we're not going, I'm going to come back and I'm going to smash it, I'm going to win, right? But I mean, at the same time, we're not going to talk it down. So, what are you seeing being the next, say, 2 games for you looking like? I mean, what's your hopes? What's your aspirations?
Crystal ball time.
Yeah. I sort of thought about it, and I don't have any expectations in the way of like what the end result looks like, other than my only expectation is that I don't quit. Like, I finish what I start kind of thing. I don't know what that looks like. I'm not going to say I am going to go until I'm 100 years old and I'm on the podium. Like, again, it's not like that. Yeah. But I do love what I do, and I love competing, and I really like the hustle. Like, I love working hard, and I love the outcome. And for me, exercise has just such a direct outcome. I work hard and I sweat like this, and then I see this outcome, and I just love that journey. So for me, it would be a huge accomplishment, and I just think it would be so cool, and I want to see if it's possible to be back at the games in the year, like only have one season out and then still be back there safely. Yes. Like, still do all the right things, don't rush a single thing, but just be so precise and just live like a really good life and be so all over my health and everything, and just see if that actually can get me back there in a really good headspace and a really good physical space. And, I don't like the idea of not placing well. I'm a competitor, like I want to place well. I don't know if that'll be win the games, but I like to be one of the fittest women in the world. That makes me feel good, and I love working hard for that. So I don't expect that this coming season, so 2020, but I also haven't written it off. I don't see it as being impossible. So I'm just going to max myself out in every way that I can, still being a really good mum, being a good wife, do my business justice, still train really hard. And I want to see if I can have it all, like that's my goals. Someone said to me once, like, you can have it all, like it's just really hard. And, I want to see if I can. And then if I can't, I go, oh, sweet, well, I tried really hard and I got somewhere pretty cool and I had a good time. I didn't sacrifice anything. Yep. I balanced them all as best I can. Yep. And then just see where that goes. And then, hopefully by the second year, like maybe then it's like up again, I don't have the same commitments to feeding her and like physical commitments. I mean, obviously there's still a lot. Sure. But to be back on the podium, to be like one of the top women again would just be so cool. And I think it would be so cool to show that, you can still do it. You can still be a mum. You can still be a good mum or a good dad or whatever, a good parent. You can still do that. You can still be successful and still have time for you and be who you are. And if you look after yourself. And I just think it's almost like a really fun experiment for me, to be honest. Like it's a really cool challenge just to see like how healthy can I be? How hard can I work? Where does that go?
It's exactly like what an achievement. I mean, that was inspirational, a bit goosebumpy. Also qualified coach and studying a degree, a Bachelor of Health Science. I mean, I've got one of those, and they are tough. Yeah. And that was my 3rd degree. It was tough. Yeah. And you're doing it with being a professional coach, with being a professional athlete, with being a full-time mum and a business owner and a public speaker and everything else that we've mentioned. It's inspiring what it is.
What it does is
at the age of 30.
It gives people permission, if they can let go of excuses, and it comes down to the individual as well. It gives people permission to actually achieve it. It's like we spoke about it in the last podcast about Roger Bannister, who was the first guy to run a sub 4 minute mile. And it's like seeing somebody put a straw through an apple. So I remember having this business coach, and he goes, can I put the straw through the apple? In the room of business people was going, no, that's impossible. And he goes, bang, and he whacks it straight through the apple, right? People have done it with potatoes. If you Google it, you can have a look at it. Yeah. Because until a lot of people, the visionaries are the ones who actually go out and achieve it before it's been done. Yes. Whereas by doing that, a leader effectively showcases that it can be done.
That it can be done, and other people will try.
So, and that's obviously, what you bring to the table. You bring the fact that you are a professional athlete, you've got a family, you've got the balance going, you've got the study, you've got everything else. So if people can let go of the excuses
Yeah.
and they can actually look at that and they can go, well, if Kara can do that, then I can do more.
Yeah.
I can achieve this. I can get the degree. I can, get back into the gym. I can, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It opens up possibilities for people.
There's a huge difference. I always say there's a huge difference between excuses and reasons, and excuses put you in a victim mindset, and like, I don't want to be a victim of excuses.
Yeah.
There are reasons sometimes. There are days where today is a day I cannot train. I'm going to swap my rest days. I'm going to make something work because my baby girl got sick and she needs me, or whatever it may be, like that happens. That's a reason. That's real. But I always just say, like, if you can look yourself in the mirror and you know that you could potentially do something, then did you do it? Or if you look yourself in the mirror and go, I could have done it, but I didn't. Like, you know when you ask yourself and you really look hard. But like, who wants to live as a victim? Like, it's not it's not a fun life. I don't want to feel the victim to anything. I kind of want to drive my own life and then at least try. And then if you fall short, like, it's no big deal.
No, absolutely.
You're still going to be further ahead than if you didn't try at all, right?
And I think that's what a lot of people are afraid of. They put like, this is success, this is failure. I don't want to be a failure, so I don't try it. When it's actually, no. You could actually improve the quality of your life and everybody else's life by actually just trying. And sometimes, and it's, even in business as well too, with ATP Science, we've ended up in a position that I didn't really think of, but through just results, not excuses, and just doing everything we possibly could, kind of we've put the effort and the energy in, and then we've kind of gone along a path. We've ended up somewhere pretty great that wasn't the exact idea of maybe what we started with, if that makes sense.
Totally.
So it's like anything in life as well too, but I really appreciate you coming in today, and I definitely want to have you back after you're number one on the podium. No, but after you've competed as well too.
Tia, let me have a go, please. Let me have a turn.
Yeah. Have you watched? There's actually a really inspirational movie about some ice skaters, and there were 2 ice skaters in the United States, and one had a baseball bat boyfriend. Have you?
Jeez.
I'm so joking. But
someone play the cue the music.
They made a movie out of it. The thing I love about you guys actually is that there is a genuine camaraderie, and there's a genuine respect with you guys, which is absolutely brilliant. And I can't wait to obviously see you both back out there again, and again be cheering you on. Same with even James, our athlete, who I love to death. He's such a nice guy, and Matt, who I've never met before. It's like,
have
just
the Aussies
cheering
out
him on.
there, exactly. Well, I know how hard I work, and so if somebody is above me, like, how can you not have respect for them? Because I know what I do. So for them to be even higher and be succeeding, and then especially being another Aussie, like, it's pretty cool. Like, you have that element of like, I wish it was me, like, forever. You're like, but that gives me something to keep working towards. Like, is she outworking me? Like, what do I do? So you just have to use that. It's much better to be that way than to be, enemies or and something negative that's unnecessary.
Mark Boris put out a post earlier this year, and actually
entrepreneur.
He was the guy who had Wizard Home Loans. He's an entrepreneur. He's got other things. Yellow Brick Road, I think he is as well too. I forget. Anyway, he put out a post. He goes, "What is it with Australians? Basically, stop this bloody tall poppy syndrome, where you see someone at the top and you just want to tear them down." Now, Americans don't seem to have as much of that in their culture. It's what is it with Australians, where it's like, if you're succeeding, that means I'm failing. Let's tear you down. Let's absolutely. I'm sick of it. I'm with Mark Boris. Mark, if you're listening to this, I'm with you, mate.
Yeah,
seriously,
I totally
we
agree.
need to change the culture of a win-win. Just because you've won doesn't mean necessarily of lost. You can have champions, out there at the same time. It doesn't mean it's a zero-sum game.
And there is enough room for everyone to be successful in some way. Like, everyone can do well. It doesn't just mean that one person can do well and that they're the only person that can do well. I think that I've done amazing. I haven't come first yet, but that doesn't take away from everything that I've done and accomplished.
Still a champion.
I'm still there.
2 seconds and a third. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, like you're still there. So
I agree.
And I want to put one out to you. When you finish the athletic thing, I hope is many, many years to come. I want you to come into the health profession with me, because you'll be a great speaker. You'll help many people live happy.
We're going to get a good taste of it this weekend.
So I can't wait. I'm nervous and excited.
I know. Kara, look, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks for having
You've been
me.
good seeing you again. It's been a long time, but we'll have you back on so we can obviously progress with your journey.
For sure.
Excellent.
I'll be here.
All right. Thanks, guys. That's all that we've got time for, and we'll be back with more next week.
There you go.
Bye
Thank
for now.
you.
Bye.